Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra book. Let us continue. We were on the section that was titled On Great Events. Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is an island in the sea, not far from Zarathustra's blessed isles, on which a fire-spewing mountain smokes continually. And the people say of it, and especially the old women among the people say, that it has been placed like a huge rock before the gate to the underworld, and that the narrow path that leads to this gate and the underworld goes through the fire-spewing mountain. Now it was during the time when Zarathustra was staying on the Blessed Isles that a ship anchored at the island with the smoking mountain, and the crew went ashore to shoot rabbits. Around noon, however, when the captain and his men were together again, they suddenly saw a man approach through the air, and a voice said distinctly, "It is time, it is time." And when the shape had come closest to them, and it flew by swiftly as a shadow in the direction of the fire-spewing mountains, they realized with a great sense of shock that it was Zarathustra. Okay, so the character now has sort of like a whimsical element to him. It flew by swiftly like a shadow, fire-spewing mountain. For all of them had seen him before, except the captain, and they loved him as the people love, with a love that is mixed with an equal amount of awe. "Look there," said the old helmsman. "There is Zarathustra descending to hell." This is the first time the character has kind of gone into a weird sort of hero's journey. Something like that. It's a little different. At the time these seamen landed at the Isle of Fire, there was a rumor abroad that Zarathustra had disappeared, and when his friends were asked, they said that he had embarked by night without saying where he intended to go. Thus uneasiness arose, and after 3 days the story in the seamen was added to this uneasiness. And now all the people said that the devil had taken Zarathustra. Alright, so now we have some different narrations coming. Different narratives, rather. He flew by like swiftly as a shadow versus being taken. So his own volition is coming into question. His disciples laughed at such talk, to be sure, and one of them even said, "Sooner would I believe that Zarathustra has taken the devil," but I deep down in their souls they were all of them full of worry and longing. Thus their joy was great, when on the 5th day Zarathustra appeared among them. Okay, so this isn't a resurrection, because when you talk about Jesus dying and coming back, the disciples being sad, there's an element to that. But this often brings to my mind the tale of Persephone and Hades, going there and coming back, or other narratives of Hercules going and fetching a woman he likes in the underworld, something like that. So there's something to going into the abyss and then making it out and coming back, right? And this is the story of Zarathustra's conversation with the firehound. The earth, he said, has a skin, and the skin has diseases. One of the diseases, for example, is called man. I don't like that. No. See, because, it sounds like that. Whenever humans are described as a sort of pest, it's nihilistic. I understand it, but at the same time, I really find it quite disturbing, to be honest with you. Humans are not a disease. Earth is our domain. It was created, I think, for us, right? It's this planet that has all the habit zones for us. People can survive in some of the most gnarliest situations. So I don't think it's right to talk like that about humans, in my opinion. I just think it's quite nasty. A lot of anti-natalists talk like this. The 3-body problem on Netflix, the aliens thought, humans were bugs, called us bugs. Like a skin disease, something to be gotten rid of, something that's not beautiful, that's a blemish. Because when you have a disease on your skin, it's not beautiful. But humans do leave garbage and trash, which is sad. Destroying trees. They don't make things beautiful in a certain sense. But I'd argue that there are some people who know how to live in a way that is beautiful. Right? It's just we have some deforestation problems and pollution problems. One of these diseases, for example, is called man, and another one of these diseases is called firehound. About him men have told each other and believed many lies. To get to the bottom of this mystery, I went over the sea, and I have seen the truth naked, verily barefoot upon the throat. Now I am informed concerning the firehound, and concerning all scum and overthrow devils, of whom not only old women are afraid. Out with you, firehound, out from your depth, I cried, and confessed how deep this depth is, whence comes what you are snorting up there. You drink copiously from the sea, your salty eloquence shows that. Salty eloquence. People who live around fishing areas, you often call them older men, old fishermen to be exact, seafarers. They call themselves salty in a way. Because when you say it in a slang term, oh, you're salty. It's you're disturbed, you're angry, you're agitated. In other regards, being salty means you have an edge to you. Salt isn't necessarily, it's a preservative. You add flavor to something. When you add salt to something, it adds to it. When something doesn't have salt, it kind of lacks flavor and is bland. So when you have a salty eloquence, it can be a sort of edgy bluntness in a sense. Indeed, for a hound of the depth you take your nourishment too much from the surface. At most I take you for the earth's ventriloquist. And whenever I have heard overthrow and scum devils talking, I found them like you. Salty, mendacious, and superficial. You know how to bellow and to darken the ashes. You are the best braggarts and great experts in the art of making mud seethe. Wherever you are, mud must always be nearby. And the interesting thing about mud is that mud is kind of deadly. Pigs roll around in it, but it can take down a mighty elephant. A lot of elephants, they can get caught in the mud and die, especially baby elephants. And much that is spongy, cavernous, and compressed and wants freedom. Freedom is what all of you like best to bellow, but I have outgrown the belief in great events, wherever there is much bellowing and smoke. Believe me, friends, hellish noise, the greatest events, they are not our loudest, but our stillest hours. Not around the inventors of new noise, but around the inventors of new values does the world revolve. Okay, so around the inventors of new values does the world revolve. This makes me think about how in Islam we call every innovation is misguidance, dogma, right? And Aqidah and creed. And that for us, you need to stick to Tawheed, you need to stick to the Quran and Sunnah, you need to do your best to not be an innovator, because every innovation is misguidance. And if you're misguided, your moral compass can't be on track. You can't construct well, you can't navigate properly, you can't get to your final destination in the most complete sense. So when you see like a progressive who's like new values, so you adapt, you reform, you do away with tradition, you reinvent the wheel each decade, then you see that it can kind of become strange. The inventors of new values, you better find out what value system that is. It revolves inaudibly. So let's see this again. But around the inventors of new values does the world revolve. It revolves inaudibly, without any sound. You can't detect it with your ear. Admit it, whenever your noise and smoke were gone, very little happened. What does it matter if a town became a mummy and a statue lies in the mud? And this world I shall add for those who overthrow statues. So, and this word I shall add for those who overthrow statues. Nothing is more foolish than casting salt into the sea, and statues into the mud. I like that phrase. It's foolish to cast salt into the sea. That's where it comes from, and it's not going to do anything to it. It's so vast, it'll get so diluted. Adding salt to salt. How much salt could you possibly add to salt the ocean? But the mud, putting a statue in the mud buries it and kind of disfigures it and disgraces it and allows it to get buried. So I'm not sure if I get his point. The statue lay in the mud of your contempt, but precisely this is its law, that out of contempt life and living beauty come back to it. Okay, so you have contempt for it, so you toss it and disgrace it, but maybe because it's a hard material, it doesn't decay as fast as you think, and even in its decaying, it has some sense of beauty, maybe. It rises again with more godlike features, seductive through suffering. Yeah. Okay, so because it is aged, it has this more weathered and tethered look. So the material itself suffering the elements, erosion and whatnot. And verily it will yet thank you for having overthrown it. O you overthrowers, this counsel, however, I give to kings and churches and everything. So it'll thank you for overthrowing it, for tossing it into the mud, making it more rustic, more rugged. And look at the Sphinx, you know, it's disfigured, but it's still a tourist attraction, right? That is weak with age and weak in virtue. Let yourselves be overthrown so that you may return to life and virtue return to you. So let yourself be overthrown so you may return to life and virtue. So this sounds like the phoenix rising from the ashes. There's that show Kung Fu Hustle, which is kind of like a karate, kung fu-ish, taekwondo-ish comedy. I like it a lot, but he gets beaten up, right? And then comes back stronger. I forget the Asian term for that. There's like a specific cultural Asian term for that. But there's also like a religious one as well. And it slips my mind, but being broken down and then coming back is essentially what he's getting at. Overthrown but not defeated is the key here. Thus I spoke before the fire hound, then he interrupted me crossly and asked, Church, what is that? Church, I answered, that is a kind of state, the most mendacious kind. But be still, you hypocritical hound, You know your own kind best. Ooh, you know your own kind best. Nietzsche, he's got lines, I'm telling you. Like you, the state is a hypocritical hound. Like you, it likes to talk with smoke and bellowing to make himself believe, like you, that he is talking out of the belly of reality. For he wants to be by all means the most important beast on earth. The state, and they believe him too. Really reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. When I had said that, the firehound carried on as it's crazy with envy. What? He cried. The most important beast on earth, and they believe him too? And so much steam and so many revolting voices came out of his throat that I thought he would suffocate with anger and envy. At last he grew calmer and he grasped his ease, and as soon as he was calm I said, laughing, You are angry, firehound, so I am right about you, and that I may continue to be right. Let me tell you about another firehound. He really speaks out of the heart of the earth. He excels gold and golden rain. Does his heart want it? What are ashes and smoke and hot slime to him? Laughter flutters out of him like colorful clouds, nor is he well disposed toward your gurgling and spewing and intestinal rumblings. Intestinal rumblings, really getting into the deepness and squirmishness. But when something is from your intestinal, like it's getting at the guts, like you're speaking from the gut, something really deep down inside you, something very visceral, embodied, essential, an organ. This gold, however, and this laughter he takes from the heart of the earth. For know this, the heart of the earth is of gold. They say gold comes from like something like really, I don't know how gold is formed, but the mining for it, like just minerals in themselves being in the earth, and like the deeper you go in those mines, it's like the heart, something very beautiful and essential. It's like life-giving. And then how they use some of those minerals in electronics and whatnot. There's something to be said there, right? Something to be said there. But gold being that little gem of earth, and then the earth having a heart of gold, it's a fun play on words. When the firehound heard this, he could no longer bear listening to me. Shamed, he drew in his tail in a cowed manner, said, Bow wow, and crawled down into his cave. So he silenced the firehound and shamed him, so you can kind of see his ability to overcome. He wasn't overthrown by the hound, the firehound. Thus related Zarathustra, but his disciples barely listened. So great was their desire to tell him of the seamen, the rabbits, and the flying man. What shall I think of that? Said Zarathustra. Am I a ghost then? But it must have been my shadow. I suppose you have heard of the wanderer and his shadow? This, however, is clear. I must watch it more closely, else it may yet spoil my reputation. And once more Zarathustra shook his head and wondered. What shall I think of that? He said once more. Why did the ghost cry? It is time, it is high time. High time for what? Thus spoke Zarathustra. So watching his reputation, who was this shadow, he's contending it wasn't him. Thus their joy was great when on the 5th day Zarathustra appeared among them. And this word I shall add for those who overthrow statues. Nothing is more foolish than casting salt into the sea, and statues into the mud. Mud must always be nearby. Some dangers when you come into the mud. You're on your four-wheeler, and you're going through, you can get stuck in that, and pushing your vehicle out can be quite hard. Even if you intentionally go mudding and you are out there to get dirty on purpose, it's still something that is hard on the wheels. And even if you are on horseback, your horse gets stuck in the mud, you can't get them out, they snap their ankle. It's a treacherous thing. And he mentions spongy and cavernous and compressed. Cavernous, if you're with an animal that can snap its ankle, that wouldn't be good. Something to think about. Salty eloquence was another one I liked. So Zarathustra descending into hell, and his disciples thinking that it was Zarathustra making a joke that, he took the devil on versus it taking him. That he went to the hell and he silenced the firehound, so you're seeing his tenacity. Sort of like Gandalf with the Borg. I have a tattoo of that creature. I mean, you shall not pass. Just not having any type of fear towards something that large. Or you can think of it in a kid's way, where Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Ronald Weasley encounter Fluffy, Hagrid's three-headed dog, who is the guard of the Chamber of Secrets, and they have to soothe the beast by making him sleepy. That he has a weakness. Got 3 tenacious heads, but all you gotta do is sing him a nice little lullaby. The potentness of music to overtake even the beast's mind. Something to examine. Even the snake is soothed with some music sometimes, or distracted. So, him being able to make the firehound feel shame and go bow bow and, tuck its tail because of the words, that's something, isn't it? Not having to use sheer force and some giant weapon or magic, but simply his voice, his rhetoric. So his rhetoric was able to silence the firehound, who was very, very upset. And they didn't know what a church was. And then he mentions the state. Interesting how he mentions church and then the state. It's almost like he's talking about institutionalized religion. Maybe it loses its religiosity, it loses its spirituality when it becomes corporatized, 501c3, captured by the state, regulated by the state on what the preachers can say. Something really interesting. I really like it. It's a great book. He has these one-liners that really can get you thinking. Mashallah. Good read. If you like to support my work and read other things that I write, you can do so by going to my blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there. Mashallah, mother and all her babies. I saw a kestrel hawk, type of bird-looking bird, try to snatch one of the babies. It's in the tree and the crow's chasing it off. Oh, there it goes. I don't know if I saw him move from one tree to the next. Poor mama duck. Oh, there you go. See, he's trying. Pretty scary. Motherhood, am I right? You can kind of, I don't know if you can see him, but he's hidden in the trees now on a perch. Poor mama needs to take her little babies out. Poor little ones, they're so cute. That's why it's really hard for some of them to survive. I don't know if you can see him, but the little one.